Can I see everyone, Juliana? Is it possible?
Should be under dashboard if you have dashboard available.
Okay. I'm saying all, but it's not showing me, just me and Diana. Hello, everyone. My name is Teresa Moore. I am the director of the SABE GoVoter project. I'd like to welcome you to the distance training series. Today is Tuesday, March the 30th, 2021. And we are going to be bringing you our latest version of the training. And in just a few moments, we will be having you introduce yourselves and your team members. But first, let's go to the next slide so you can meet the rest of our team. Not everyone is with us today, but myself, Teresa, and Diana, Mayrose,
Hi,
and
everybody.
go ahead, Diana.
Hello, everybody. I'm my name's Diana Myros. I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio, and I have completed the SABE GoVoter project training.
And she did such an excellent job. We asked her to become one of our training team. So also Juliana Warenya, would you please let everyone know that you're present?
Hi, everybody. This is Juliana. Today, I won't be able to show my screen. My computer didn't let me show it today, but hopefully the next weeks we can.
And she is the center picture on the second row. And then Bill.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I know our vote team really appreciates you guys taking your guys' time out and attending our webinar.
And then the other two team members that we have that will hopefully be joining us is Essie Peterson from Ohio, and I'm going to do it again. Anthony Black. I think I did it right that time. Anthony always reminds me of an old friend, and I usually get his name wrong. Anthony Black is a intern that we have from Alabama, and he is helping us with some of our research, and you'll be meeting him hopefully next time as he informs us about some of the things that he's learning about the effects of guardianship on voting. So that'll be the next meeting that we have that we'll be talking about that in more detail. So that is our team. Next slide, please.
Okay, so you need to know. So we will be recording this webinar today, so you guys will be able to listen to it or view it later. We will be taking breaks when needed, so if you guys need to take a break, or if you're in a group, please let us know, and so we can take a little break. If you have any questions, please say your name and then ask your question.
Next slide.
And also, we will be asking poll questions during this webinar. We will be asking also a survey question at the end of this webinar. Again, we'll have a parking lot ready for you guys, so if you guys have any questions not related to this topic, we can discuss it there.
Thank you, Bill. Next slide, please.
Who's in the room today? Can you tell us your name and what group you are representing? Let's start with California.
Hi, everyone. This is Gabe Taylor. I'm with Disability Rights California. I'm our voting rights advocate, and I actually participated with the SABE GoVoter project in 2018, and it was a really great experience. And so I'm very happy to be back to be working on it again this year. And I will be working with two representatives from two organizations. The first is Keisha Weller. She works with the Tarjan Center through UCLA, and they work on advocating and outreach for folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And she is unable to be here today, but she's very excited about the project. And then the other collaborator is Rhonda Harden from the State Council on Developmental Disabilities. And I think Rhonda should be on if she wants to introduce herself. Hopefully.
Hi, Gabe. Thanks for the introduction. My name is Rhonda Harden. I'm the self-advocacy coordinator for the State Council on Developmental Disabilities. And I'm just really excited to learn more, increase my knowledge about voting and get involved with this project. So thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay, on to our next state, which is
Missouri.
Missouri. Who's in the room today?
I'm Lisa Gabriel, and I'm the advisor for People First of St. Joseph. And I have two members that are supposed to be with the project today, Chris Fagan and Gary Klauser. And I work at Merrill, an independent living center in St. Joseph.
Thank you. Is there anybody else from Missouri?
We have Rachel from the PNA in Missouri. Rachel, I unmuted everybody. There you go.
Hi, yes, sorry, I was trying to figure out how to unmute. My name is Rachel Price, and I'm here with Lisa and everyone else. I'm with the Missouri Protection and Advocacy Services. We're a statewide organization that helps in all kind of disability-related matters. I'm happy to be here today. This is my first time working with this webinar series and the project, so happy to be here.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I think that's it today, Diana.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, and we hope that you learn new things, and we're here to help each other.
Thank you, Diana. Next slide, please. So one of the things that I think is real helpful to entering a new project or working together is to find out who it is that you're working with and a little bit about its history. The GoVoter project actually has a very long history of success. Myself and Tia Nellis and Nancy Ward helped to start this project because when we started over 20 years ago working on voting, we wanted to know why people with intellectual, cognitive, and developmental disabilities were not voting. We knew that there was no information tracking people voting, but everybody that we asked, they just weren't voting. And so people told us that they had been told all their life that they weren't smart enough to vote. And they were told that they were not taught voting in school, and that actually they would be put in other classrooms while the typical students learned about the voting process. Some of them said that they were just actually even just moved out of the room because people thought that they wouldn't get anything from that part of the training that people were learning. And so you can imagine that they were pretty upset, but they didn't know what to do about it. So go on to the next slide, please. So we wanted to know, what ways do you like to learn new things? Juliana, would you help with our poll question, please?
All right, so I just shared the poll question and we'll give you a few minutes for everyone to answer. Do 15, 20 seconds. And then I will close it.
So the best way for you to learn new things, to write it down or have a note taker, study the info with a friend or support, have it read to me or listen to the information, or you have an option to tell us something else that works well for you.
All right, looks like 80% of us have already voted. Are you ready to close it?
Is everybody that wanted to vote voted? Okay, let's see what the results say.
You want me to read it, Teresa?
Sure, go ahead.
What is the best way for you to learn new things? 75% of us said to write it down or have a note taker. 25% said to study info with a friend or support person. Thank you all for answering the poll questions.
Let's go on to the next slide. So self-advocates told us that the best way for us to do this training, if we wanted to create a training for people, is that they wanted people with developmental disabilities to be the ones to be the trainers, to teach them the voting process. And to keep in mind to please don't make us feel bad for what we don't know, and make sure we feel good for what we do know. So that was our approach for doing the training, is that everybody has the right to speak up, and that giving everyone, credit for participating, even if they might slightly not have it quite right, was still okay, because speaking up and participating was half of the battle for most of the participants. So we knew that that was a big deal. So we never want people to feel bad for, not quite getting it 100% all the time, but to really appreciate that they've participated, and to make sure that they really felt good when they got the answer correct completely. So go on to the next slide. So when we started to write the training and we took our first version on the road, so to speak, back then it was a big deal to take trainings from state to state and travel around. And we would go and have 4 or 5 states that were in a region get together and take the training, and we would teach the training. And then when HAVA, the Help America Vote Act, came out, everyone should have the right to vote privately and independently. That became my lead saying, is that you have that right and that your vote is private. And that makes you powerful because you don't have to tell people how you voted. And that gives us the right to keep it to ourselves. If, you know, different situations come up where people are asking us, who did you vote for? How did you vote? You should vote for this person or that person. And you have the right to say, well, votes are private. And people felt powerful when they would say that. And so sometimes I would even have people practice. If somebody asks you about your vote, you say, well, my vote's private. Thank you for asking. But yes, I did vote, and I'm very proud that I voted. So that was really important to us, that people felt that pride of voting. Next slide, please. So there used to be a lot of training done, and they called it the train the trainer model. And I'm just wondering if everyone has heard of that, or if you haven't heard of it, or heard it but don't know what it is. Let's have a poll question about that to see where everybody's at.
The question is, have you used the trainer model? The answers are no, yes, or not sure what it is.
Thank you, Diana.
All right.
How are we doing?
67% have voted, 83% have voted. I think that's everybody, right?
Okay.
All right, I'm going to close it and share.
Have you used the trainer model? 60% said no, and 40% said yes. Thank you for answering this quick poll question.
And so the train the trainer model was, we would go to these regions and train these 4 or 5 states, the team from SABE would, and then that team, those different teams in that state had the goal to make a plan to train others around their state and spread the training across their state. So it was called Train the Trainer model. And it was when there was lots of training being done. It was in the 90s, basically. The 1990s, there was lots of money for travel and training of people with developmental, cognitive, and intellectual disabilities. They wanted to get as much information to people as possible. And so we did that. We trained the main group, and the main group took the training around their state and trained the other teams. And then those teams trained at the local level and so on. So you can see how a small group of people, 3 or 4 people, could really have a huge impact on a state's voting if they really focused on a train the trainer model. And we found it really successful on spreading the word of the GoVoter project. Next slide, please. But this is the trick. When we did the training in person, we took 2 days and a half. The first day, we trained everyone, all of the teams, the entire training toolkit. And then the second day, the states trained each other. So they would draw from a little basket which topics they would train back to the group. So we would take time for them to practice and divide up all the work for the topic, and then they would train it back to everyone. And it was a lot of fun and had great energy. And then they would complete a training plan about how they were going to do this and do the train the trainer model in their state. And then before they left, they would report what their training plan was. And then we would have a call later in the year and just ask how the trainings went so that we could try to learn what worked well, what didn't work well, what activities worked well, what was needed to be changed and updated, because every year the voting laws would change around the country and we would need to keep up with them. Next slide, please. But think about how expensive it was for us to have all of this training going on. So many self-advocates were trained, and each year state laws, they did change. The more active we got, the more it seemed like we had more laws to keep up with. And we wanted to keep adding experts to the team who knew about voting. And so we invited the protection and advocacy organizations in states to join the teams by invitation. And you might know them as disability rights in your state. They use different names. So they were invited to our training, and then soon after that, technical assistance dollars in grant money became available, and we formed a partnership with the National Disability Rights Network, which is the Protection and Advocacy Organization's national organization. So SABE has a partnership with the National Disability Rights Network to provide training and technical assistance to the PNAs and self-advocacy groups now to do the training together. Next slide, please. And the purpose of the training was to develop this partnership to become stronger and work together. Some states had worked together before and some had not. And the goal was to increase the number of voters with intellectual, developmental, and cognitive disabilities, and learn how to use the SABE GoVoter toolkit to the very best, and to continue to spread the word about HAVA, the Help America Vote Act to make sure people understood what their rights were to vote privately and independently. Next slide, please. And the new times. Well, things changed even before the pandemic. Back in 2012, the money changed how it was being spent. And a lot of states started having rules about not being able to travel out of state and use the travel dollars that way. And so our face-to-face meetings with multiple states just dried up. It just stopped happening. And we had to quickly think about how we could deliver training in a new way. And just think of it, in 2012, you weren't seeing all the things that you're seeing now. We started doing our training online with the PNAs and states, and we have multiple states, and now we have multiple states that are participating, and they are attending like you do a college class where you audit it and repeat it when there are new leaders. We actually have requests now for new leaders to get the chance to come back and get refresher courses so that the team members can keep everybody up to date. And so people are starting to repeat. We have over 20 states that have gone, that have had our online distance training with us, just like you're having today. And we started it way before the pandemic, but due to the pandemic, we had to change it even more. We used to do the training with the states, and then they would go into face-to-face training in their states. And then the pandemic came along, and we had to think about how we could do it even more differently. And some of the governors last year, the states were closed. So states did multiple meetings online, just like we're doing today, and taught self-advocates and others about the training that they had attended, and did multiple meetings so that self-advocates had a chance to learn as much as they wanted to and ask questions about issues and have guest speakers and things like that. So even though we think that we have everything figured out in one way, we continue to adapt to our situations like all human beings do. So according to your comfort, if you want to do face-to-face and your state says that that's okay and safe to do, you're welcome to do that. Or you can do online training with a group. And this is for our Missouri participants. The self-advocacy group will receive an honorarium of $500 for completing the training once they have done their train the trainer model or the training, basically. But a lot of states have chosen to continue the course of doing the train the trainer model because they want more self-advocates to know how to do the training. So they actually want to do the whole training with their state team and have a group of trainers that are ready to go before the next elections. And that is where we're at right now. And so you know, however you decide to do the training, that's up to you. And so I just wanted to go through the history because we have seen all different variations of this training, and it has the flexibility to be done however you need it to happen and what works best for you and your team members. But the only requirement that we have is that there is always a P&A partner present and always self-advocates present to teach it together. Next slide, please. And so one of the things is that it's important for us to know about each other and to know team members and how much you have got to work together. Some self-advocacy groups and P&As have worked together a lot on voting and other things, or they have done other projects together, or maybe you haven't worked together at all before this. So we just want to kind of go over that and see where everybody in the room with the partners that you're going to have this time, have you worked with them a lot before, or is this a new experience? Diana, do you want to lead that discussion?
Yes. Well, thank you, Missouri and California, for joining us today and introducing yourselves earlier. Missouri, how well do you know each other? If you just met today, that's great. Or have you known each other from other projects?
This is the first time that I was able to meet Rachel, and I met her. We had a webinar before this one, so our team could just get to know each other, but we've not worked together before. But my self-advocates, I have worked with them on projects. So this is our first time.
Well, great. Thank you for letting us know that. Anybody else from Missouri? All right. How about California? Have you
So
known each other before, or have you worked on other projects before?
I have had the opportunity to work with Rihanna. We've done before. We've done a couple of discussions with a couple of the larger voting groups in California. There are several that focus on outreach and information for different organizations. And so the State Council and the ARC of California have been a part of a number of our discussions that Disability Rights California has done on voting and just things to be aware of when you're wanting to get information on upcoming elections. So it's really great to be able to bring Rihanna into this discussion as well and be a part of this project.
Thank you. I just want to emphasize that this new relationship on voting will continue to grow from the training and meeting new people, and it's a way you can help people if they have questions or ideas, or you can network by telling others about the training.
Let's go to the next slide.
I think Roger wanted to say something.
Okay.
There we go. Roger, now you can unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, yay.
All right. So, okay. So, what I was going to say is that some of the actual partners in regard to Missouri Protection and Advocacy, we may uh, be new to. However, People First of Missouri has had a long standing working relationship with Missouri Protection and Advocacy. We actually partnered probably, well, it's been more than probably 10 years ago, or more. We actually partnered on guardianship restoration of rights efforts, and so that was a pretty cool, pretty successful option that we were able to work on. And um, we actually have self advocates that are on the steering committee that are representative on the Missouri Protection and Advocacy Board. So,
That sounds great, Roger.
So you have, it's always nice to hear. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Maybe a few more questions that will help each other. So does everybody know everybody's mission and goals? I'm just curious. Does the PNA in Missouri know what the goals of the self-advocacy groups are?
This is my first time working with this group. I looked into them a little bit, so I have a general idea. But I am excited to know a lot more about their organization and get to know kind of what they do, and also work with them on these webinars and hopefully in the future, other projects like this.
Yeah. Roger or anyone else want to share a little bit more about the self-advocates mission and goals, and maybe any other things that you're working on that might be of interest to share?
well, I think that Missouri's self-advocacy goals are summed up pretty much in the fact that we exist to ensure that individuals with developmental disabilities are able to live the life that they choose to live, be included fully within the community, and therefore that is our primary mission. Whether we have other projects and that we work on, we are involved in quite a few boards across the state trying to um, accomplish those to that end. So, and anybody else is welcome to chime in here. So.
Thank you, Roger. I'm sorry, I misunderstood your question. I thought you were talking about Merrill, who Lisa is working with. I didn't know you meant our own goals, so that is my bad.
This is Lisa, and I just wanted to say something that we are working on right now. The State for Independent Living is going to give a youth scholarship out to a youth from high school if they're wanting to go to college. And so our group has actually formed a collaboration with Merrill to be able to get some funds for that scholarship. So we kind of put our goals in a line with People First of Missouri. We are a chapter of People First Missouri, and we just try to make our goals in line with them. So I just wanted to let you know that.
That's really cool. See, I think sometimes we we don't know each other very well, and I think it helps in the relationship around voting and other things to know what's important to the other group. How about, I don't think you have, do you have representatives, Gabe, from the self-advocacy group? Yes, Rihanna has. Could you tell us a little bit about the self-advocacy group in California, what they're working on?
Hi. So my name is, as I stated before, my name is Rhonda Harden. I work for the State Council on Developmental Disabilities as their self-advocacy coordinator. And in that role, I support the committee of self-advocates that serve on our state council. There is currently 9 committee members on that committee. I also provide support to the statewide self-advocacy network, which is a network of self-advocates from up and down the state of California, throughout all of the 12 regions that the state council has offices in, as well as different organizations and partners that serve people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So right now it's more SAN. Well, SAN is more of a it's a train the trainer model network, and so they've just been focused a lot on gathering information to take back to their communities. There's been some interest from members about voting in the past, but more of I've approached it more of from a information standpoint, and am really looking forward to strengthening that and moving into education and empowerment. Sorry, I don't think that answered your question.
Well, we'll get there, because I think one of the things is that you alluded to it, but we'll get stronger as we do more and more work together, is voting affects everything and everything affects voting, because of all of the different issues and services that people get and how money is connected and all those things. Eventually, people need to find out how voting is connected to their lives and to their services and to them having the things that they want in healthcare and, you know, all kinds of different things, and how money gets spent in their state and all of that. So it eventually all gets connected back to each other and goes full circle. So that's the way we connect voting. And the thing about self-advocates and PNAs presenting together, the PNA makes sure that we understand and get the laws correct, and that we know what to expect when we go to vote or get ready to vote or prepare for voting on different issues, and understand what the issue means. And the self-advocates help them figure out how voting on that issue connects to their lives, and helps tell personal stories that help self-advocates realize why they're so important to the voting process. And that's what this training is all about, is the importance of knowing the rules, the laws, and understanding them, and not being afraid of them, but knowing how to use them to help them get what you need, and to understand how to use your personal stories and examples to connect to the issues, to the dollars, and make everything work when it comes time for voting. And so we all are interconnected and all are very necessary for each other to be successful. And that's why it's important for us to know what each other's working on, because when we know that, we can go so much further. Because when you think about even just the rights to have education and all those things, and your P&A can help you understand things about caps and all of that stuff. But in case somebody gets to that point when you're doing scholarships and things, and you start having more and more people go to college and they run into issues, and you know who to call when something is not working. This relationship is meant to build on now and in the future, whatever self-advocates run into, that they might need that legal expertise. And then for the P&A, they need people's stories to make it real for the American public, so that people can understand why we are so important to everything. So it's just, this collaboration is so vital. Let's go to the next slide, please. So then the self-advocates need to know what the protection and advocacy groups are working on. So in Missouri, do you guys know what your P&A is working on?
I do not.
Would you like to share just a few of your goals from the P&A about what you work on besides this project?
Sure thing. Yeah. So we work across the state of Missouri to protect the legal rights of individuals with disabilities. We advocate for them on limited scope and litigation levels. We work on all kinds of issues, including housing, voting, obviously, Social Security and other disability-related benefits. Let's see, we work on a wide scope of ranges. We also work within the prison system as well. It would be kind of hard to encompass all of the different areas, but it's a wide enough array that I think you can get it. What?
What is it that you work on?
I specifically, so I work on legal cases with Missouri Protection and Advocacy Services. I advocate for the rights of individuals with disabilities. That's the basic premise.
Mm-hmm. And are you working on anything right now? Is there anything that's active?
Sure, I've got some cases having to do with Social Security disability benefits. I have some guardianship issue cases working to restore the rights of those who have maybe been put into too restrictive of a guardianship. I've got some housing and rent control related issues. Let's see. I've got some record related issues. I've been working on all kinds of stuff. So.
That's really exciting. See, that just gets me excited. I'm like, oh, that sounds really interesting. Wow, I'd like to know more about that. See, so self-advocates, you never know what's going on in the other parts of their lives. So just remember to tell them a little bit more about yourself and what you're working on, because we want them to connect to you, because you probably have other attorneys in your office, right? Are you the
Yeah, we
only
have a whole
attorney,
legal
or
team.
is there, huh?
Sorry, we do have a whole legal team. Yes.
Yeah. And so you probably get to sometimes get to say, I have expertise in this one and I have a experience in that, or a background in this, or I'd like to try that one or this one. And so by choosing which cases you want to work on or getting assigned something because it interests you, helps self-advocates get to know you better. And when they get to know you better, they get to figure out how they can help you by saying, well, we have self-advocates who want to know more about that. Could you come to our self-advocacy group and tell them what their rights are related to that issue? And then, you just never know where those things are going to lead. It might be the breakthrough story that you need to break your case open, So it's just one of those exciting relationships that you don't know what you're going to benefit from until you open it up and explore it. So that's why it's so exciting. And Gabe, is there anything that you would like to share with us about what you're working on that maybe Rihanna doesn't know about?
Yeah, so we have we did a lot of work, obviously prepping for the 2020 election season. And one of the big issues that we often deal with out in California, the issues around guardianship fall under a category of folks who are under a conservatorship. And so one of the things that we work with a lot are individuals or family members who are interested in having their family member or maybe their son or daughter who is under a conservatorship have their voting rights reevaluated and possibly look into having them reinstated if they have been taken away. So there in California, there is a process to do that. And so one of the services that we provide individuals who are under a conservatorship is advocating for their right, have the right reevaluated and possibly reinstated. And so we work to help them, assist them to write letters if need be, or just have discussions about the process and what it takes to have their voting rights reevaluated. So we do that. We also, one of the things that we're going to be working on pretty intensely this year is that there will be more than likely later in October, November, there will be a recall election for our governor. And so we will be doing a lot of work around that and just sort of educating folks on that. But in terms of main issues that we work on sort of consistently, the conservatorship one is a fairly common issue that we get calls and folks who need assistance with that or have questions about the process. So
That sounds like that could really be an interesting educational period when you guys have to go through that. And probably
yeah,
starting to think, how can we talk about these things in an understandable way that people can relate to it and not be overwhelmed or confused by it, because probably already seeing messages on the television about it, right? That are
yeah, well,
confusing.
yeah. One of the things that we work with a lot is so out in California we have state ballot measures. They call them propositions out here. And the famous story that I tell is during the 2016 election, there were, I think, over 26 different state propositions on the ballot. And, you know, if you're watching, say, your favorite show at night during, you know, an hour-long TV show, you'll probably see 8 different commercial spots where they're talking about, you see one commercial says, vote no on Proposition 16, vote yes on Proposition 16. And so we have a whole conversation about how to look at those propositions and sort of understand them better. Because sometimes if you're voting yes for something, you're actually voting against a program. Or if you're voting no for something, you're actually voting for something. So we have a whole discussion about how to understand the propositions and understand what your vote actually means. So
We all need help with that one for sure.
okay.
As you can see, the relationship between the P&A, when you're probably thinking, how can we talk about these different things so that people can understand it? You need the experts, you need self-advocates that can be in the room who can explain what different words mean to them and help you break it down into plain language so that you can describe it, explain it, and make it work for people. And so we want to make sure that you understand that this relationship that you're building right now is going to be something that you can tap into on an ongoing basis from this point through your vote training and into the future, that's going to help you achieve what you want to together. You guys are starting something that is totally exciting. Next slide, please.
Real quick, Teresa, I think Rihanna had one more thing that she forgot to mention. Rihanna, do you want to talk about it?
I'm sorry. For some reason, I can't see people's hands raised or something. I apologize. Go ahead.
A comment on the chat box, but go ahead, Rihanna.
No worries. I don't think I raised my hand. I just typed it in the chat. One project that I did work on back in 2016, the secretary representative from the Secretary of State's office in California did. I coordinated for them to attend the Self Advocates Advisory Committee meeting, which is a committee within our state council, and to review accessible voting equipment. So I thought that was a really unique experience to get their feedback on the voting equipment and to kind of help to build a relationship with the Secretary of State's office and self-advocates to kind of emphasize the importance of voting for people with disabilities. Unfortunately, with this past election, couldn't do that because of everything being virtual. But it's on the radar to continue to foster those relationships for future.
Good. Yeah, it is one of the most helpful things to have people test the voting equipment that's coming around and being exchanged and replaced and tried out, and make sure that everybody. Yes, Diana, do you have something?
I want to thank you for that story, because I also did that at my board of elections because of my strong relationship with my board of elections. They knew who to go to, what agencies to go to, and arrived variety of people with disabilities were able to test the new equipment and provide feedback that was needed for the state office as well. When you did that, did you do that hands-on?
In 16, did she do that?
Yes, it was hands-on. It was in person at a meeting.
That's great. I hope once COVID-19 restrictions go away that you could continue to do that somehow. Thank you.
It is one of the things that we encourage you to think about when if you do get to do your training in person, is to add an extra hour just for your participants to get to practice on the equipment, even though they may have done it in the past. If they haven't done it, the last election, maybe they chose to do mail-in ballot because of COVID. Maybe they would like to practice again on the machines, just to make sure that we keep as many options open as possible for people, because we believe that all ways should be available if that's what the voting public chooses in that state. And we realize that many states are trying to take away that right, and we are making known that the GoVoter project really wants people to have as many ways as possible to vote, because that people like to go out and vote whenever possible, to be seen, to be known that we are voters and that we do care about the issues. Let's go on to the next slide, please.
Before we go, I just wanted to make a comment. I know that
Sure.
there have money to provide states to either purchase or lease accessible voting machines. Did your state take advantage of that? And if so, were self-advocates in the P&A involved in testing the machines, or did your state just pick what they thought was best for voters with this, or what for voters to use the accessible voting machine?
Who would you like to ask first, Juliana?
Let's ask California.
So we did, they did a number of testing sessions with different organizations. I worked with members from LA County, because this was the first full election cycle in 2020 where they had, they were using a new voting system. And so as part of that, they did a number of different testing sessions throughout the design process, but then also when they were getting it certified. And a number of different groups were a part of that, and different self-advocates tested it. There were a couple of groups from their advisory committee that would participate with the testing sessions. So.
Great. Now let's hear from Missouri.
So I am unaware of Missouri Protection and Advocacy's efforts specifically with the voting machines in Missouri. Roger, if he's still here, may be able to elaborate a little bit better on that. But I do know that we take voter-related issues. If there are a lack of voting machines or polling places, we can and do step in on those cases. I haven't been with Missouri Protection Advocacy Services for nearly as long as Roger has, so he might have more information And I'm not saying he's with Missouri Protection Advocacy Services, but he's worked with us for quite a long time from my understanding.
Roger, is he still with us, Juliana?
Oh, we lost him. All right, we can ask that next time.
Yeah, I'll look further into that and get a more concrete answer for you all to see if maybe upper management has been involved or not with that. Thanks for your patience.
Okay,
No problem.
no problem. We're just delighted that you've joined the team, and any of those issues will help you too if you don't get the answer that you're looking for. We can also investigate too. Let's go to the next slide, please.
Okay, is that me?
Yes.
I thought so. Okay, about webinar number 1, March 30th, 2021. We met your fellow training state teams. We also reviewed project goals and activities, and we discussed roles and responsibility of all groups. And we're going to introduce the toolkit to you.
Next slide.
About webinar number 2 on April 6, 2021. The GoVoter team will teach you the GoVoter toolkit. You will learn how to design the training for your participants, and also we will learn how to personalize the training for your state, because every state is different. But voting is a way to understand what you want in your state.
Next slide.
About webinar number 3 on April 13, 2021. We will continue to learn how to use and teach the GoVoter toolkit. We will review group assignments, and we will help you how to organize and teach the training. And we will also discuss the importance of completing evaluations. We have some technical assistance that's provided by the SABE GoVoter project staff, and we will tell you the different types.
Next slide, please. So Juliana, why don't you just give us a quick tour and show us around the GoVoter website pages located under sabeusa.org.
Let me end the show to the side.
Hopefully technology will work with us today.
Yes. All
Yay.
right, so here's the SABE website, and you can click on projects and then click on the GoVoter page. And then once you do that, you'll be on the GoVoter homepage, and on your right here has all the different tabs. And you'll want to go to the voter education toolkit. And on this screen, it has the facilitator training manual, and it's being updated right now. It's almost complete. We'll have it ready for you this week for you to look over, and you can make copies of it and be able to use it to your state specific. And in addition, we have PowerPoints. Below here, I have the 2020 PowerPoint slides, meaning that each of the PowerPoints are divided up. So then when you do your presentation, you have the options of choosing which topic you will be presenting on. And that's what we have here. We have a couple more PowerPoint presentations that we'll be adding. And the one that is very important to all of us is about guardianship. And we want to make sure that you address that issue in your state to make people aware about guardianship and the rights for people to vote. In addition, we have the how do you vote handouts, and in here it has different activities that you can use for your training. We also have voting videos that you can share during your presentations. Bill, do you want to talk a little about how it's easier if you're doing a virtual meeting, how to make sure the video is not lagging when you're streaming it? You want to give a quick pointer on that?
Yeah, so it's a lot easier just to have the downloaded versions of it because we've noticed, especially we just did one like a week ago where we were trying to stream it and the actual video was not synced up to the lips, or it was lagging behind of what was actually being said and stuff. So it was, but yeah.
So why don't,
Yeah.
next week, why don't you plan on showing them exactly what you mean so that
Mhm.
they can do it? We'll have you show them how to put a video into their presentation. Okay, Bill?
Yeah, we can do that.
I think that would be very helpful. And I'd like to see it too, because I always forget because I get out of practice. It's always
Yeah,
good
see,
to have a refresher.
yeah, the only thing that I guess will be the requirement is just to make sure that you have, I guess, the up-to-date PowerPoint, because some of those features aren't available if you have older PowerPoint programs.
What version do they need?
I guess whatever the late, I think it's what, 2010 is the latest one, I believe.
Okay.
I'll have to look and see which one is the latest one.
Could everyone let us know if they have 2010 or not before next week? I'll let Juliana or myself know so that we can prepare information for you. And if it's not going to work for everyone, I don't want to do it that way, because that would not be a good use of our time. So if you have something that is not 2010 PowerPoint, then we will figure out another way for you to put the PowerPoints on a flash drive or something and do it that way, because that's the way we did it before, correct, Bill?
Yeah,
We would put them on a flash drive and then play them when it was time to,
yeah,
so that it would be would play correctly.
yeah, because it was too big of a file to actually send it via email. So
Yeah. So we want to show you that, but only if everybody has 2010, and that will work for you. Okay. Um,
Did you want me
keep
to
going.
open one of these so that people can see
Yeah,
it?
let's go. Well, will it be lagging? Or are you
No.
talking about a PowerPoint?
A PowerPoint or the training manual? Which one should we share?
Let's go ahead and open up one or two, or both of the, we can do both of those because we should have time. That way we won't have to do it the next time.
See if it likes me to. It's not liking me today.
It doesn't like you clicking buttons.
There we go. It's gonna let me open topic 1.
Oh, there it is down there.
Mm-hmm. All right, so when you're doing your presentations and, for example, you use topic number 1, you would have this presentation, and then the PowerPoint would allow you to put everyone's pictures and logos of the organizations that you represent. And then each PowerPoint has the purpose of the training. So for example, this one talks about voting and how can you vote in your state, and some information on choosing candidates and what to do if you have trouble when you're voting. And then about making sure that everyone is included when you're building a voting coalition in your state. And as we did earlier today in the training, we talked about, does everybody know each other as presenters? And as we learn that it's very good information to learn about what each organization is doing in the state.
And this one also asks, what is your biggest voting question?
It does, huh?
Yes, it does. And so if you have a group that you do not know, it is very good to ask, what is your biggest voting question? You want to try to establish if there is something that you don't have in your plan to answer that you could get an answer to before the end of your training, because you want to try to make sure that individuals get what they need from your training. And so if you ask what is their biggest voting question, there's a good chance that you've got most of it covered, but every once in a while there's something that catches you that you go, oh, I need to think about that for a minute. So this way, if you ask it at the beginning, you have a chance to think about it and think about who has the best story, example, explanation, whatever it is that you need to bring into the class, to the discussion, to the presentation, you know, what that person is looking for. We want to try to satisfy the audience members as best we can to make sure that they get what they need. Okay, go ahead, Juliana. take us
Great.
through the rest of this one.
And then this last one is, so we try to include some questions to make sure that people are if you're going to do it virtually, make sure that people are attending and are being active. So we like to throw in questions such as, do you think poll workers should give you candy with your I voted sticker? Let's ask everybody here. Would you want some type of candy with your I voted sticker when you go vote?
I'm personally okay, but I think some people would very much appreciate receiving candy, or I personally really like the stickers. I mean, if you're truly asking.
Yeah. See,
I love to get my voted stickers, and I don't really care about the candy. So I would say no, I don't need candy. I want my sticker.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I also am the same way. I love having that sticker. I mean, it's almost as much fun to actually go vote as it is to see all of my friends and people that I know will post different pictures and how creative they get with their I voted sticker and how they set it up, you know, and they'll post them on their social media. But it's that pride of having that sticker in their hand. So.
I think we should have 2 stickers, one to put on our shirt that day and one to put in our calendar. If you still use the paper calendars, planners like I do.
Diana, that's funny because like this last November when I voted, I did wear my sticker and Gabe, and I shared it on social media. But then when the day was done, I put my sticker on to my calendar for that date that I voted on.
Cool.
That's cool. Fun.
So those are what you would see in this toolkit, is just making sure that you're asking the right questions and making sure you're engaging your audience, especially that we're doing a lot of these virtual presentations.
Why don't we go on to go ahead, Diana. No
In
worries.
my state, like our voter sticker, they put it in the absentee ballots.
You are right.
And they
Yes.
marry sticker with our ballots.
You are also correct, Diana. I'm going to go ahead and pull the training manual from my computer. But typically it would,
Okay, since it's not loading.
yeah.
I think sometimes when these virtual programs are running, it does make your toolkit run a little slow. The facilitator toolkit, the education guide toolkit is for the trainer. It is not necessarily for the audience. Some people give it to the audience because the audience can read the background information about why they're being told these things or examples from the trainers, but that is for you. The slides, however, we often do give the slides to the audience so that they can take them home and they can write on them during the training and draw on them, doodle on them, make notes on them, whatever they want. But the toolkit isn't necessarily meant for you to copy and give to everyone. Just so you know, you don't have to copy this book and share it with everyone. Now you could, if you wanted to, share different pieces from it. There are activities and pages from activities in here if you are doing role plays and things that we have put in here. But you're not necessarily required to give this to every audience member. This is meant for your training team. But if you are doing a train the trainer, you would want to either set it up so a person could be have it on a flash drive and look at it, or pull it up off of the internet, or however you want to give it to a trainer. But it is not necessarily meant for your general audience participants. This is for you as a trainer to help you. It's it has go ahead, Juliana, and let's show everyone the first bits of this so they can kind of get the idea of how it's set up.
Yeah. Just put a little information about the toolkit and how many editions we've had. So last year it's the 10th edition, and this year will be the 11th edition. Yay! We have a letter for self-advocates to just encourage them about what they'll be doing and helping people with the voting process in their state. And as we mentioned earlier, the goal is to increase the number of people with disabilities to cast their vote. In this section, it talks about the toolkit, how it's laid out, and what some of these symbols represent, and to make sure that people are ready to help out when it's their turn. So as you see here, we have this representing the presenters who will be facilitating the training. You always want to have somebody, since maybe most of your presentations will be virtual, make sure you have somebody ready to help out, and not having a team player having to manage presenting and helping people either get on or helping them with some of the features in the platform you'll be using for presenting. In the past, if you did a presentation in person, you would have someone hand out some of the materials that you'll be using during your presentation. Another important team player would be the note taker, and making sure that they're taking notes if you have big papers, if you're doing it in person, or even when you're doing virtually, have somebody keep track of what people are saying. That way that if anything is missed, or if there's a question that somebody has on a different topic, then that note taker can bring that up during that important time. What else do we have here? If you're doing a presentation in person, there's a couple of activities that may, or actually you might want to take pictures of people presenting and participating in the training. That way when you are presenting to your funders and such, that you have some information as in images to show that people were engaging in the voting activity. Let's see what else we have here. And then here's just some materials that you may need if you do it in person to make sure that you can present the information. Let me see what else we have here. The candy activity, you'll want to make sure that you have all types of candies in case when you do the activity, if people have some dietary needs, you can accommodate them or not. Another important piece is, if you're doing it in person, is to have registration forms. So if someone is not registered, you can help them register them. And then, as Teresa mentioned earlier, it might be a good idea, since a lot of states have new voting systems, to encourage the election officials in the counties to bring some of the machines so people have hands-on in using the machine, so that way they know all the features that the machines that the state have picked out for them to use. And then sign-in sheets are important, and name tags if we do it in person. That way you know people who are attending, if you want to get some more feedback from them, if you want to do some evaluations, if you want to do follow-ups. One of the important things is, let's say this person has never voted before or hasn't voted as much, and you want to see how their experience was the next time they voted. This would be a great opportunity to make sure you have contact information of them. Let me see what else that's important here. Most of this is information is if you're going to do it in person, make sure you have papers and pens and evaluations. Make sure you have all the electronics that you would need for doing that presentation in person. Another good thing to bring is brochures or business cards to share with other people, so that if they want to get connected back to you, if they have any issues or have questions after the presentation. And I think that covers everything, right, Teresa?
Yeah, one of the things that we also know that many of the PNAs will put out business cards that have their 800 number for election day on it, and it will, if you give them out during a training, people are more likely to have them on them. Say, put it in your wallet right now because election day is around the corner, and you'll have, if you're not comfortable calling us while you're at the polling location, call us immediately, as soon as you can, and here's the number. So they will give out business cards that people can carry in their wallet and be able to call for help if there's something going on at the polling location, or if they had some kind of experience that they want to report right away to the PNA, or if they want to just say, hey, everything went well at this location, except for I saw such and such in the parking lot going on. Maybe you saw somebody cross the barrier line that they weren't supposed to try to get people to vote for them or something. Anything can happen. People make mistakes, and it's good to have that contact information given out at a training. And if people have a relationship with you, they're more likely to contact you back. So, that way we know, because that's happened before, where people have used that contact, that relationship, to report those kinds of incidences where somebody, approached them and they weren't supposed to. Yes, Diana, did you have something?
I do, and we also like to have quotes and pictures of people, with the I voted sticker, or I voted for the first time today, or something like that. And these stories and quotes, we use them for a way to connect PNAs and advocates and to encourage other people that they can vote as well.
Great. Yes. The living example is always the best. The stories, the little videos, anything like that that you can add to your training will always help you. This describes how the toolkit is set up for the facilitator. You have the why, what this topic is about. You will have the pictures or icons on the side of the page that will be used with the time and different activities. And then you have these blue boxes. The blue boxes actually were a creative idea when a person sometimes has problems remembering everything that they want to say. So they are meant to either type over, many of them in the toolkit, you can totally put your own example in, or we share an example that you can use. And this is what's in the blue box to help you with your discussion or help you to remember something important, like, remember to tell people where the bathrooms are or something like that at the beginning of the training, or, something to that effect. But as we go through the toolkit and the slides next time in more detail, you'll see how we use both tools, the slides and the facilitator guide, to help us do the training. And once you do it a few times, most people end up using just the slides. They get so comfortable with it that they kind of get the hang of it and have their own examples and use the slides only. But when you're first learning, it's great to have these extra things that the original people, Tia, myself, and Nancy, and Juliana and Bill and everybody. I think even Diana's made it in there now because she's been part of the training team a couple of years. She's got one of her activities that she modified, made it in. And I think we've even put some stuff in there that Gabe had recommended. So every couple of years it changes because people recommend to us things that they think will help people understand it better. We never stop learning. We never stop improving the toolkit, and so that's why it's so cool. It's a living document that is always able and willing to have new stuff put into it and change it and update it. Let's go to the next page. This page is when you have a full training team and you're doing a live presentation, or you're doing a very detailed long day presentation where you're going to try to use as many of your team members and volunteers as possible. It has the many roles that people can play. Juliana told you some of them, but this is all the way through to thinking about how people are going to be welcomed into the training room, how people are going to be helped when activities are going to be going on, and who are the floating volunteers that you have to help people when they are doing activities and things like that. All of these pages are meant to help you think of those things to make sure you have enough people to have a full long day training if you want to. Now, when you are doing the training for us, you are only required to do 3 topics. The self-advocacy group is only required to do 3 topics during their training to receive their honorarium. But what we have found is that depending on the group, they modify it however their creativity takes them. We have people that have turned some of the training into panel presentations. We have had Diana's group turned it into a completely new role play, and we added that last year to the role play options. We have added new videos this year because people requested some updated videos. So you have all kinds of options and different tools to use. And we also, just a friendly reminder, if you want to have a fully accredited team that does every topic all day is about what that takes. If you're doing anywhere from 12 to 20 people, it takes all day to do all 10 topics, is what I believe it's up to now. It will take that. So you want to give them a certificate of, um, of being a fully certified trainer by SABE. That means that when you've done all 10 topics, you've done the training and you're ready to go. And you're ready to just about handle anything that comes along in the discussion. Then we certify you as a SABE trainer. And that's a pretty big honor because it does take a lot of time and dedication to become a fully certified SABE trainer. And Ohio did do that. They went through the whole process to make sure their whole team was trained in all of the topics. So that was a really awesome time for us. Next page, please. And this tells you all of the big papers. If you like to do discussion, I love discussion. I like to talk about things. I like to break things down into many questions and help people through the process of breaking things down and making everything as understandable as possible. And so this is what we call the big papers. And this helps you lead discussion topics. When you're doing these, you can have somebody at a location who actually does do this. You could do this kind of like a live streaming with a camera and have somebody do the big papers discussion style. But this helps you to prepare them ahead of time for each topic if you want. And I found that it saved a lot of time to do this ahead of time instead of trying to write them in front of your audience. And while you're trying to write and read and talk and, to have them ready was a great time saver. And so that's what we did, and we prepared this for you. So you have a couple of pages of those for the topics. Go to the next page. I think is one more page of those. And then next page, please.
So I pulled the wrong document here. So.
Okay. But you guys kind of get the idea. Is there any questions right now? I know I've gone a little bit fast. Let's switch back to the PowerPoint real quick. But this kind of gives you an idea. And we are trying our very best to use plain language documents as much as possible. It is tricky sometimes to get all voting things in accessible language, but then we try to use examples and explain what words mean if we cannot break it down typically. So we do try to use plain language. Go on to the homework, Juliana.
So you want to go back to the website and pull out some of the activities, or do you want to go ahead and move on to the
No,
next?
let's move on.
All right.
So today we have met each other. We have learned how each state team works together. We have figured out where you find the toolkit at SABE, SABEUSA.org, GoVoter, and you look and find the toolkit. We've looked at the beginning of the toolkit and how to use it. And we're starting to learn what this true partnership means. It means that we both have equal responsibility to the success of the training, and that we work together, that we know what each other does for their organization, and we have starting to learn more about each other and care about what each other does so that we can help each other. Next slide, please. And we're going to start working on getting to know what your state rules are. Like, how many days before you vote do you have before you need to be registered? How do you vote in your state? What kinds of voting options do you have? What do you have to show a poll worker to vote? IDs. Must you take to the polling place or the voting place? Your state ID, does military ID work? The Bureau of Indian Affairs ID work? Utility bill? That's what works in our state. What works in your state? Next slide, please. What does your state say about guardianship and voting? What does your state say about supported decision making? Are you working on that law? Some states have it, some states are working on it, some states not interested in it. It's supposed to help with guardianship and help individuals make decisions. Is your state going to access this very useful tool to help them talk about their guardianship? What does your state say about convicted felons? And is it changing? Next slide. So your homework is to go to the SABEUSA.org website on your own and just practice finding the different tools, and Juliana is going to put that new updated toolkit on there in the next day or so. And then before we meet next week, just see if you can get it to pull up for you okay. That'll be a good test for her, because sometimes when we practice on our computers, we have so many versions that it'll pop up and we won't know that it's not working until we get on a different computer. So you can help us make sure that everything's working okay. And then if you need help figuring out how to do a Zoom meeting to do your GoVoter meetings and fill out your planning form, just let us know and we can help you figure out how to set that Zoom meeting up to start talking to your team and meeting with your team to do your homework or starting to think about your plan, about where you might want to present and what groups would really benefit from the training. Look over the website and toolkit and look at the questions that I've posed and see what you can find out on your Secretary of State or your election board website, depending on your state, and find out what you can learn about those different laws and how they affect people's lives. Start brainstorming where you want to present. Who needs this training the most? Who would benefit from learning it? Now that you've trained some people, who needs to know next? Who's being left out? Whose rights are not being acknowledged correctly? Next slide, please. So, anything in the parking lot, Bill? I didn't hear any questions that went to the parking lot. Did anybody? Does anybody have any questions right now?
No, I don't see any here.
Okay. Any comments or questions about the homework or of what we're going to do next week?
Teresa, I just wanted to just let everybody know we, because we're all working virtually and Zoom is sort of our only option to do presentations like this. I've learned a lot of things that work and some things that don't work. So if folks need help sort of figuring out what kinds of materials to use or what kinds of presentations work better for the group than others, please feel free to reach out to me. I can sort of talk a little bit about stuff that we've done in the past with some of the larger.
Oh, would you like to share that on week 3 before everybody starts presenting?
Sure.
Just a few helpful hints.
Sure. Yeah, that'd be fine.
Okay, we'll plan on that for week 3. That way we can make some time for it.
Sounds great.
Okay, thank you, Gabe.
Yeah.
And then you're always welcome to invite more people to be part of your team. We have no set limit. We just ask that there always be a P&A and self-advocates. So if you want to invite more people, you're more than welcome to help you create your project and be able to have more support. We know that it's a lot to take in a very quick amount of time. And if you would like more self-advocates involved, please invite them. Next week, we will be taking on the full curriculum and doing our best to get through it. If we don't, we will finish up on week 3 and then talk about more of the planning. And that's where Gabe will tell us a little bit about what he's done and share that with us, and as well as Diana. So she and I will be training together, so you will get to hear more of her experiences next week. Are there any questions at this time? Checking in with Missouri.
I do not have any questions for you. Thank you, though.
Okay.
I don't have any either.
Okay. Well, I think you all have Juliana and my email. If something comes up, we will send you this PowerPoint so that you have the questions that you're supposed to try to find out what are the rules in your state. We will also hopefully be able to have Anthony, our intern, come and help us talk a little bit more about guardianship and how it does affect voting in the United States. And in your states, if you haven't found a lot of information, maybe he's found some. So he can help with that if that is a barrier. Hopefully it's not too difficult to find, but if you are having trouble, just let us know on any of the questions. There's a lot of really interesting things. I think probably what you'll find is that you're going to enjoy reading about it more than you realize, and it's going to become an obsession like it did with all of us. We ended up reading and reading more and more every time, just because it gets more exciting. The more you understand, the more you want to know. So, well, if no one has any more questions, does my training team have anything else they would like to say?
It was great to meet new people, and I just want to remind everybody about the importance of relationships, and if you don't know the question, ask around, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Diana. Couldn't have said it better myself. You have all been a delight. It's been a pleasure meeting you, and I am so excited to get to take you all through the training next week, and look forward to learning more and more about your states and about all of you as individuals and as group members. Thank you so much for your time. Anything else, Juliana or Bill, before we sign off?
Just thank you everybody for being on, and we'll be sending you, as Teresa mentioned, the homework assignment. If you have any questions that you have on the project, please email me, and we will answer them as quickly as possible. And I'll make sure I have that updated manual and training up on the website shortly.
Thank you, everyone. We're done a little bit early, but that's okay. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.